Oli, thank you for joining us. Let's start with the anti-Israel chaos that's unfolding at American college campuses. They've well and truly intensified. The protests turned violent at UCLA, and at Columbia University in New York, police were forced to disperse activists.
This is the New York City Police Department. You have been warned as per City College to leave the campus. If you refuse to leave, you may be placed under arrest.
Back it up! Back up! Back it up! That means you! Back up! Back up! Back up!
Oli, firstly, your reaction to this vision?
Well, the protests and clashes at UCLA have been so far the worst out of all of the anti-Israel protests that have swept across the US. Clashes broke out last night after Jewish students have been denied entry to the campus for days. And the UCLA campus is actually public property, so any member of the public can access the campus. This Jewish student was denied. They formed a human chain. They told him Zionists were not welcome, even though he pays tuition fees and he's a student. So we saw this severe act of anti-Semitism. We saw a Jewish man that was tasered by a woman that was chasing the Palestinian activist. We saw a woman beaten with her head stomped, left unconscious. And then last night, of course, we saw large numbers of pro-Israeli protesters clashed with the anti-Israel activists, and it turned very violent. Pepper spray was used, bear mace. They were fighting each other using sticks, hitting each other over the heads. There were a lot of injuries there. And I spoke to somebody directly on campus, one of the journalists, and they said that the UCLA campus police were given a stand-down order for many, many hours. They weren't intervening. Of course, the LAPD sent riot police there. But while the riot police were on scene, it did take them a long time to get involved. And California Governor Newsom did criticize the campus for handling this very bad and saying it could have been prevented and there will be consequences for the violence and the perpetrators.
It's just appalling. And what concerns me is it's been 7 months since Hamas attacked Israel. There are no signs that this situation is getting better. It appears that the dark underbelly of anti-Semitism that has been exposed is getting worse by the day. Where's the leadership?
Yeah, we're seeing shocking incidences around the world. London has become a no-go zone. You have the Metropolitan Police telling people that hold Hamas are terrorist signs that they could get arrested if they do not disperse. You had a Jewish man being told not to walk across the street because he was quite openly Jewish, according to a police officer. So we've seen police failing to act. In terms of in New York, there's been severe anti-Semitism, and New York has the largest Jewish population outside of Israel. And we've seen the worst cases there, the protests at CUNY, the protests at Columbia, and many other universities have really turned violent. We've seen Jewish people being denied access to campus. Columbia University professor Shai Davide, who is Jewish, was denied entry, whereas Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was allowed entry, and her daughter had been suspended, yet she was allowed entry to stir the pot and to kind of speak to these protesters. And it's really out of control now. New York Mayor Eric Adams has completely condemned these protests. He has said the New York Police Department are cracking down severely. But we need leadership. We need Biden. We need in the UK Rishi Sunak. In Australia Anthony Albanese doing something to stop this, because it's really reaching unprecedented levels that we haven't really seen since 1930s Germany.
Yeah, well said. Look, Oli, you've been calling out anti-Semitism on your platform and some of the extreme behaviour and attitudes that we are seeing being expressed by some activists. This week you shared this video of LGBT pro-Palestine demonstrators at a university in California.
Violation of Penal Code Section 409. The following routes of dispersal are available. Exit the university quad area of Cal Poly Humboldt.
Trans icon Caitlyn Jenner shared this post on X saying, "Deport these morons and send them to Iran or Gaza. Have fun being burnt alive, beheaded or pushed off a building. It's illegal and punishable by death." Why isn't the message getting through, Oli?
Well, it really is crazy when you see LGBT activists, you see the Queers for Palestine group, you see the Trans for Palestine group, And, these people are protesting in favor of people that would throw them off buildings, that behead them in the streets. You have lynch mobs in the West Bank, in Gaza, that will kill someone for being gay. In Iran, people get executed for being gay. Yet these LGBT activists are screaming resistance is justified, liberation, end the occupation. They're chanting pro-Hamas slogans, and they are so indoctrinated and brainwashed with their hatred for Israel because of the propaganda that's been fed to them on apps like TikTok and through university campuses, that they cannot see the total hypocrisy of supporting a group of people that would instantly throw them off the building the moment they step foot in Gaza.
It's wild. One positive takeaway is that there are people like yourself and Caitlyn Jenner calling this out. Do you find yourself getting trolled for posting messages supporting Jewish people?
Yeah, absolutely. It's insane. Anyone that speaks up for the Jewish community is subjected to horrendous levels of hate. We saw Caitlyn Jenner was attacked by a swarm of protesters while she was attending the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And they were really screaming in her face, shame on you, simply because she speaks up for Jewish people. I have people, shouting at me in the streets. I don't really go out much at the moment because it really is a no-go zone in London. I'm not even Jewish, but because I'm speaking up for the Jewish people, I have become a target. I'm getting a lot of hate. But you know what? I am not going to be one of those people like in 1930s Germany that stood silent, one of those people that turned a blind eye to allow this anti-Semitism to spread to very dangerous levels. So all of us need to be brave. We need to, stop listening to all these crazy woke activists, and we need to speak up for the Jewish community now.
It's hard to believe that you're not able to go out and feel safe. When did it change for you?
Well, I'm always outspoken about political issues online, but, I've been very outspoken since October 7th. I witnessed the videos, I watched the atrocity videos, the 43-minute video prepared for journalists in Israel, and it was the worst thing you can imagine. I'm not going to describe how horrific it was, but when we saw that, and then the same day as that attack had just happened, in London, thousands of people went to the Israeli embassy to protest and to condemn Israel after Israel has attacked. So we know this is a movement that has no logic. These people, did not give the Israeli people a chance to breathe. They are still going through trauma. There are still 129 hostages, and there are 300,000 Israelis internally displaced. And, Gabriella, it's not about politics, whether you're pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. It should be about being pro-humanity. And Israeli people want to see peace. They're a very peaceful people. They don't want their sons and daughters to be killed in Gaza fighting to try and stop Hamas. They want to be safe, but at the end of the day, they have to stop Hamas to prevent any other further atrocities, to prevent these rocket attacks, and to prevent a repeat of October 7th.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned earlier, it appears as though we're seeing supporters of Hamas pop up every day. Just this week here in Australia, organisers of a pro-Palestine protest at a university called ANU went on national radio to admit that they're strong supporters of the terrorist organisation Hamas. Oli, you've revealed that there's evidence that Hamas terrorists are now making money on social media app TikTok. You've posted on X that the Chinese-owned app is allowing multiple Hamas accounts to make money via the live stream gift feature. Can you explain how this is happening?
Yeah, I've seen several examples of Hamas terrorists wearing full Hamas gear, holding a gun, live streaming from Gaza, and people around the world are sending them stickers and gifts which convert into monetary value. And, TikTok has not been doing enough to clamp down on this. We saw last year TikTok had the Bin Laden's letter to America trend, which got tens and tens of millions of views. TikTok did take action, but it took them several days. And, TikTok is not doing enough. They're allowing pro-Hamas propaganda to spread. And many of these university students from Columbia to Yale to Harvard, they are getting their anti-Semitism. They're getting their information from TikTok, which is notoriously pro-Palestine and anti-Israel. So I think TikTok is a significant threat, especially when it's indoctrinating youth to become hateful towards the Jewish community.
US Congress recently passed a bill proposing to ban TikTok over national security concerns. What's your view?
So President Biden did actually sign that, which now gives TikTok around 9 months to divest and sell the company or face an outright ban. And TikTok is, of course, going to appeal this. It's likely they're going to do a lawsuit and say that this is violating their First Amendment rights to free speech. However, TikTok has said they're not going to sell. They refuse to sell. They're going to fight this case. And the Chinese government has interestingly said they do not want a sale, but if a sale is forced, they will make sure that the algorithm is what is not changed. They want the algorithm to be the same. So the algorithm that promotes transgender ideology, the algorithm that is anti-Israel, is pro-Democrat candidates, anti-Republican, they want to keep that algorithm should the sale be forced.
Okay, finally, before I let you go, Oli, we have to talk about Scotland's outgoing First Minister, Humza Yousaf. I said on Sky News earlier this week, he's the man who made the headlines around the world for all the wrong reasons. He's a person who's become obsessed with identity politics and, of course, has had a pretty big failure when it comes to listening to women, and that may have contributed to his political demise. Oli, how would you describe the legacy he leaves behind?
Well, Humza Yousaf is a deeply unpopular figure in the UK, perhaps more unpopular than Meghan Markle, and that really is saying something. He's been divisive. In 2020, he had a speech in the Scottish Parliament where he was lambasting too many white people in government in positions of power, even though Scotland is 95% white. He then, of course, had this hate crime law, which went into effect on April 1st, April Fool's Day. And he actually received thousands of complaints, more than J.K. Rowling, for his divisive anti-white speech from back in 2020. So he's been incredibly divisive. This decision, however, does come because he abruptly cancelled a power-sharing deal with the Green Party in Scotland, causing them to say that they would vote against him in a no-confidence vote. So he really didn't have a political future. But I think a lot of Scottish people and people around the world are breathing a sigh of relief and hoping that he is replaced by someone that actually is less divisive and focuses more on protecting Scottish people and protecting British interests.
And you're right, we've heard people in Scotland and right around the world express their joy, and many have said good riddance. What does the SNP need to learn from this? As Humza Yousaf lasted just over a year, will his successor be any better?
SNP has had scandals in the past. Of course, you've had Nicola Sturgeon. Her husband's been arrested multiple times over corruption allegations. So they have a kind of a checkered past. Labour, which is led by Anna Samwar, who is also very divisive and said a very similar speech to Humza Yousaf regarding Scotland being full of too many white people in positions of power. He actually, in the last poll conducted in March, he was leading by 1% in terms of popularity. So if there is a snap election, he could well become the next First Minister. And, he has been divisive. He has said that he will add misogyny to the new hate speech law. And that could also include transgender biological males that can claim misogyny should that law go into effect.
Okay, we know J.K. Rowling has been critical of Humza Yousaf, saying that he's experiencing karma right now. Is it a win for J.K. Rowling and women's rights campaigners?
It absolutely is. I think the way Humza Yousaf conducted himself, personally attacking J.K. Rowling, I think that's unbecoming of somebody that's a leader of a country. Their job is to create unity and to speak with people that have different opinions. He should have been meeting with J.K. Rowling, with women's rights campaigners, meeting with trans campaigners and trying to find some kind of middle ground. How can we make sure that everyone feels safe, everyone feels comfortable, everyone feels happy? Instead he just used his Twitter to attack her, which I think as a leader is completely wrong. And I think any next leader of Scotland should be consulting with women, because we've seen, obviously, there were transgender prisoners in women's prisons. That has now been changed due to outcry. And now we're seeing transgender activists trying to use the new hate speech law to report misgendering. So there needs to be some changes, but the next leader needs to consult with people with different opinions.
Absolutely. Author and media personality Oli London, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.